Hello and welcome in more ways than one for different reasons. This is Sean Gaylord, and welcome back to the Principal Liner Notes podcast. This is the first episode back after a brief hiatus, about 6 or 7 months, and I'm grateful that you are tuning in, whether you are listening, whether you are viewing, whether you are walking, jogging, procrastinating. Maybe you're reading Teach Like a Pirate. Who knows? But either way, I'm very grateful that you, dear listener, are here with us, and you are here with my great friend and mentor and inspiration, Dave Burgess. Dave, thank you for being here. We've got a lot to talk about and a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, hey Sean, thank you so much for having me on this show. I feel like this is one of those long-time listener, first-time caller kind of moments. I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I've listened to many an episode on runs, so it's an honor to be here live with you.
Awesome, Dave. Thank you for that. And for those of you who are watching, there's nothing wrong with your screen. Yes, there are two bald guys with glasses, and there's nothing wrong. You don't need to adjust. I mean, you can. I mean, it might make me look better, Dave. I don't know about you, man, but
I'm at that age now, Sean, where not only do I have glasses over my contacts, like I have multiple layers of prescription going on here.
wow, that's I'm not at that age yet. I know that you and I are contemporaries, but I'm not at that stage yet, man. I don't look forward to that.
It's coming. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Awesome, man. So, yesterday I was at my local Barnes and Noble, and I do this year-end tradition of visiting a bookstore. I've done it every year since I've taught, just to be by myself and to just kind of soak in the marrow of the silence and books and music and those things. And I was walking around just kind of wandering around the bookshelves, and I came across the education section, and they traditionally have your manifesto, your book, Teach Like a Pirate, on prominent display there. And I always kind of do a little nod and go, "Oh, there's Dave. I hope he's doing well." And and more on kind of how I fit into the Dage Burgess universe in a little bit. But I just picked up a copy of Teach Like a Pirate, and I realized that I have lent out copies of your books over the years as an educator, as a principal. Usually for somebody who's seeking a renaissance in teaching, looking to kind of get their joy back, looking to get kind of their student engagement vibe on. So I ended up and I realized I don't have a copy of the book anymore. So I purchased a copy of Teach Like a Pirate displayed here. And I thought, man, I'm getting ready to talk to the guy, the captain himself. And I'm just curious. You wrote this book some time ago. And I'm just curious now, where you are now, and you and I are both in our 50s, and we get nostalgic and we get retrospective. I'm just kind of curious about when you see this book, or when you thumb through Teach Like a Pirate, and what it has ignited. Your thoughts on it, man. Your reflections.
Yeah, so we're almost at 13 years now.
Wow.
It came out in the fall of 2012, so we're like almost at the 13-year point. And yeah, I'm still very proud of it. I'm proud of how it's stood the test of time. I tried to write something that was evergreen. I tried to write something that was super authentic, something that was like I sometimes people will say to me like, "Hey, how come you didn't write about this? How come this isn't in the book? And how come there's not more educational technology in the book or whatever it might be?" Right? And I always say like,
Mhm.
"Well, I'll tell you why. Because I wasn't very good at that." Or that wasn't something that I did in my classroom. And I wanted it to be written from this place of like, it's not in there unless I used it successfully in my classroom. And I wasn't trying to write the encyclopedia of teaching. right? I
Hmm.
wasn't trying to write the teaching Bible or anything like that. I was trying to tell my story about stuff that I had found personally successful with students over the course of many years. And that's, you mentioned the word manifesto. That's something that we believe very strongly in at Daybreakers Consulting Incorporated. Like, we want you to write your manifesto. We don't want you to write something that you're a little interested in or you think is going to sell well. We want you to write the core message that you want to share with other educators in the world. Like,
Yeah.
if you could give a TED Talk next week, what would be your TED Talk? Like, if you could give that keynote where after you're done giving the keynote, like, you would just want to like slam the mic down and break it, because who the heck's going to step on the stage after what you just said? Like, that's the kind of passion that we want out of educators, that we want them to share that manifesto that's burning inside of them. And I always tell people, Sean, manifesto's got a bad rap as a word,
Yeah.
because when you usually hear that word, it's like when a serial killer leaves one behind. They'll say they
Hmm.
killed, 10 people, left a manifesto in the basement or whatever, something like that. But we think of it as a pot, like this is your mic drop. You don't have to shave off the rough edges for us. Like this is, and that's what I try to do at Teach Like a Pirate is, and I think that's why it's, still resonates with people, because it was very much written from my heart, from my soul. And this was the core message that I wanted to share with other educators in the world. And a lot of that message hasn't changed for me.
Yeah, that's beautifully stated, man. And this notion of universal and evergreen, and as I was reading, kind of rereading certain things and just kind of flipping through last night, I came across, and I ended up posting this on X because it really struck me, and I knew we were going to talk about this. How you talked about the Picasso hook, the Mozart hook, and not necessarily like the actual steps that you give in the hooks and the riffs of the book, but how, when you mention Picasso, when you mention Mozart, there is going to be some level of recognition for most folks. Most folks might not be able to go, well, I don't know Mozart symphonies, or but man, I sure do know that film Amadeus. Or yes, he was a classical musician, and he composed all these great works. And I used to sing Mozart lullabies to my child or something like that. Or Picasso, man, I might not be able to identify every weird painting or his blue period or his cubist period or whatever, but I know he was an artist, and I know that his works is up in a museum someplace. And then that just got me thinking on a lot of levels in terms of what you said to your point. Like, you don't mention anything about AI. AI wasn't even in a sentence, you
Nope.
know. But the matter of connection and engaging humanity, because that, to me, that's the essence of your book. It's all about engaging humanity, and in this case, in the lens of the schoolhouse, is very powerful and very lasting.
Yeah, I try to make it. Often when I'm doing a workshop, I talk about like, hey, these are there's this whole area of hooks of like what are students interested in, what's going on in the world around you, know all this. But there's this area of hooks that I talk about in Teach Like a Pirate. It's about human nature.
Yeah.
What is it about human nature that draws people in and puts them on the edge of their seat and makes them curious and makes them want to know more? And how can we layer and embed and take advantage of these elements of human nature in a way that's advantageous to us as teachers, right? And
Hmm.
so a lot of the hooks in Teach Like a Pirate, the reason why they're evergreen and still work 12, 13 years later, is because they're based on human nature. uh, and the other part about it is that if you notice that center section of the book where the hooks are, the primary technique that I'm using to get teachers to be able to add these elements to their class is questions. And I always say, questions are the key to creativity. Like, if you want
Hmm.
to change a teacher's classroom, change their questions. If you can change the questions they ask when they're designing their lessons, you could change the whole class. And so now I wrote it in 2012, but that question will now it's being answered in 2025 if a teacher reads it today. And so now the answer to that question, it might include AI, right? But the
Yeah.
question is the same. And so by framing the central part of the book, the engagement section of the book around these questioning strategies, I think that's one of the things that's allowed it to stay evergreen. And it allowed it to go beyond my content area. Like if I just told you all my lessons, well, then that'd be great for a US history teacher.
Mhm.
But what are you going to do over in science class? You know, what are you going to do in second grade? What are you going to do in math, right? But by making it questions that they ask about their curriculum, their grade level, their particular situation, and their time in history, then the answers are going to be different for everybody. And I think that's like kind of one of the secret sauces of the book.
Mm, well said. What gives you meaning, Dave? What gives you meaning for your life and your drive, man?
Yeah, well, it's kind of changed over time, and this is something I think that's important for people. Um, we published a children's book quite a long time ago by Ashley Savage, and the name of the book was "I
Yes.
Want to Be a Lot."
Yes.
I love this book because we always and what her point was, we always ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? As if they're going to have a singular answer, as if there's one thing they could say that they want to be when they grow up, and that's it. And she said, I always struggled to answer that because like I want to be a lot. I want to be a lot of things. And that's kind of how I feel is a good way to look at life. I look at life as projects. You know, what are you into now? It might be different next year. It might be different 5 years from now. You don't have to make a selection. It's not black or white. It's not like all or nothing. It's not. You don't have to go all in necessarily, right?
Yeah,
And
man.
so I'm looking like what's bringing me energy right now? What do I want to work on when all the rest of the stuff, I can't wait for all this other stuff to be done because I really want to focus on this. And then trying to design a life that's more about creating space for that, those things that are drawing you the energy, you know? And so for a while it was coaching. Like
Hmm.
that's how I got into education. And I could not pour enough time into my coaching and learning about coaching, right? That was what I went, and then it transformed into teaching. And like I couldn't wait to get everything else done because I wanted to work on my lessons and make them as amazing
Hmm.
as possible, get in front of kids, deliver these lessons. Then it kind of transitioned to speaking and like spreading my message and sharing my message with other educators. Eventually, then it was like, okay, I've done my thing. Now, how can I amplify the voices of others and really help them spread their messages through the publishing? And so now my energy is still kind of focused on, yes, I love to go out and do the Teach Like a Pirate program, but I get more excited uh, helping to amplify somebody else doing powerful work and sharing their work with the world. So that's kind of where my energy is right now.
Right on, man. And good nod to Ashley Savage. I was very honored to preview and endorse that book, and it's one of those books that is in my regular principal read aloud cycle when I read to my students. So nice nod there, man.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, she's something else. Um, speaking of amplifying voices, there's some, and this is a nod to Allison here and serendipity, um, because today is a little bit of serendipitous. But before I land on the meaning behind this day, I'm gonna go backwards a little bit to a small ed camp here in North Carolina. When we were doing ed camps, I think it was about 2013, 2014 or so. Ed camp Roland Salisbury, and I was there with some future Dave Burgess authors, Derek McCoy
Mhm.
and Alicia Ray. And I remember Alicia had arranged a I don't even think it was Zoom at the time, man, but you had videoed in
Probably Skype.
it was Skype. Yeah, Skype. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had you had Skyped in and I remember there was all this technical difficulty because Skype was still early and we were still learning the technology and I hadn't known I had known vaguely about you because I had heard about Teach Like a Pirate and it was one of those okay I'll read it whenever I'll get to it I'm a principal. I don't have time. But you Skyped in, and I remember early in your conversation with us because we were all crowded in this classroom. There were about 50 people in there, man. If a fire marshal had been in, he would have shut the whole thing down. But everybody was in there listening and getting excited, and you were talking about the manifesto and teach like a pirate and the hooks, and there was like this kind of inside joke, so to speak, not a joke, but like people had like this inside information about you, and they were and there was just kind of like this kind of subculture of code of teach like a pirate, and I was very fascinated by it. And then you quoted, man, Carlos Santana,
Yeah, yeah,
and who you quote. It serves as one of the opening quotes in one of your chapters in Teach Like a Pirate. Now,
yeah.
one, being the music geek that I am, I was called to task because I thought, well, man, I'm a Santana fan. I know everything he's ever done, but I did not know that Carlos Santana had written his own manifesto, his own book, and you quoted it, and you quoted it in a way that really compelled me and shook me. And soon after, I remember, again, another throwback here. I remember after the ed camp, I drove to my local Borders Books and Music, and picked up Teach Like a Pirate, and read it in a couple of sittings, and was really moved and changed by that. So, but before I get to the serendipity, I wanted to kind of nod on our origin story, man, and I just have to say that just blew my mind when you did that, man. Still does to this day.
Yeah, so that was a period of time. I was Skyping into ed camps all over the place, sending books to ed camps, as giveaways and raffles, and really just kind of like um, beating the street. Like I was relentless. Like people kind of saw what happened on Teach Like a Pirate, exploded, went viral. But a lot of times people don't see, they see what's poking out of the iceberg that's poking out of the ocean. They see like
Yeah.
the virality of Teach Like a Pirate. But what they miss is under the surface, like what went into getting this thing to take off like that. And I'm going to be honest with you, Sean. I was relentless. Like I was everywhere.
You were.
I was sending books to ed camps. I was Skyping in anywhere anyone would have me. I was submitting conference proposals all over the nation. If any conference in any state said, "Yeah, you can come do your Teach Like a Pirate thing here," like I got a
Hmm.
plane ticket, a hotel room. Like I was going into debt in the early years, like going to these conferences. I just wanted to get in front of people with this message. And I knew what happened to audiences. I knew what I was seeing on people's faces when I stood
Hmm.
up and gave the message. And I'm like, okay, this is going to work if I can just get in front of people. Like this is resonating, but I have to get in front of people. And so I was doing everything I could. And I mean, I was working. I can remember Twitter, early days of Twitter. I can remember sitting outside of my son's scuba diving lesson in a
Wow.
parking lot, and there were three different chats doing Teach Like a Pirate's questions at the same time. And I was going back and forth from hashtag to hashtag in the parking lot in this car on the phone. Like it was a wild stretch during that time, and like, but I was working it. And that Carlos Santana quote, it starts the enthusiasm chapter, I
Yes.
believe, the E of pirate, right? The first part of the book is the acronym, and Carlos Santana said, "Enthusiasm is the most contagious thing in the world. If
Yes.
songs become incidental, what people receive is your joy." And then
Yes.
in the chapter, I talk about like that's what it is. This is the education, like the enthusiasm, most contagious thing in the world. The lessons become incidental, and what students receive is our joy, that love of being with them, that love of sharing space with students, and they can
Yeah.
sense that inside of you.
Yeah,
Just like if you
man.
were to see Carlos Santana play the guitar live, like it's a transcendent moment. It's a
Hmm.
transcendent experience, right? And you like the whole world disappears for Carlos Santana, and everything is immersion is another thing from Teach Like a Pirate, the eye of pirate, right? He's immersed in the moment and sharing space, right,
Yeah.
with you and the audience, and it's all interconnected. And so that was a very powerful quote that I had heard him say in I think it was the history of rock and roll
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, man. He and that's a great analogy because you don't think about Carlos Santana being a teacher, right? He's very much one who, when he plays, he just gets into this world and this other space, but you're still invited into this space, right? And as a teacher, whatever grade subject or grade level, you have transcended yourself to this moment, and you're inviting students into that passion, into that joy. And again, that's why your books last, because you're talking about universal human truths that we can all relate to, that transcend border, time, era, what have you. And that in turn, in that moment, I thought, well, man, you know, I, I could do something with that. I could share my story, and that led to what I thought was going to be something about Celebrate Monday, and it didn't. And I remember, I think in getting into the initial author conversation with you about, well, you got to write about what you're passionate about. You got to write about what you believe in, man. And then that led me to the Pepper Effect, which is kind of my mashup love song story about leadership and culture and innovation through the lens. There it is. Through oh man, he's wearing the Pepper Effect shirt. Yeah, I
I've
think
been
one of
hiding that.
30
I've been
made.
hiding that from you, Sean, like this, but I'm like, okay, now it's time. Let's go.
Nice segue, man. Nice, nice. And we didn't plan this today, Dave. We did not, because I had reached out to you and said, hey, I'm bringing the podcast back, and I'd love for you to be a guest. And here are the dates and here are the times. You signed up for this date and time, which happens to be the book birthday for the Pepper Effect.
Incredible. I would love to say that I planned that, Sean, but I can honestly say that it was not, that was not in my mind.
No, you planned the shirt, which I'm very grateful for, but um, again, we just couldn't have timed this any better, and I'm very
That's
grateful
perfect.
that you all said yes to the book, and it's a story that like the Beatles, is still hitting in various places over the years. So I'm very very grateful for that, man.
Yeah, you know
Always.
what? So I said this on my podcast when you came on, and so I'll say it on your podcast. To me, The Pepper Effect is a special book because it's very much kind of one of the cornerstone style books of Teach Like a Pirate, because we have this belief that, we publish a lot of books that we feel maybe wouldn't see the light of day with a traditional publisher.
Hmm.
And those are the ones that we really love because, I always tell the teachers, what is unique about you, your particular strengths and talents, and your voice that you add to the world is what's going to make you most powerful and effective as an educator. And then that's the same thing as a writer. And the idea of taking your love of the Beatles and then mashing that up with your love of education and creating your manifesto around that is just such a powerful thing and something that we're so proud to be a part of. And it's just like when people say, like, what kind of books do you publish? I often use the Pepper Effect as a example
Oh man, thank
because
you.
it's like this I really feel when I'm reading it that I am feeling something that could only have been written by you and is your manifesto. And a lot of books in education today, if you were to put them all out on the table and you were to shuffle the names around on the bottom of the book, it wouldn't matter because that book is written third person, formal, academic, right?
Hmm.
But if you take our books, the idea of changing the names on the bottom of the books would be ludicrous. It'd be ridiculous because our authors are inside of these books.
Yeah.
And the Pepper Effect is a perfect example of that. You are all over and inside and on every page of this book. And the idea that it could be written by someone else is insane, right? And so I love the Pepper Effect. And I think I could also very confidently say that it is, and will be the only book which has been turned into a school play musical,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes, that is, yeah. I think well, one, thank you for all of that, and I appreciate the whole process and the origin story. But yeah, that was, I'm still blown away by that. The school in Canada, and I remember texting you and going, I was like, you got to see this. I couldn't believe that, and I'm still so moved by that, which, you know, in some way, it goes back to this notion of invitation, enthusiasm, joy, and the fact that a drama club took this book, which again just kind of blows. I'm still humbled and moved by that, and said, well, let's use this as our play, and they had people to come and see it. Probably the greatest compliment and the greatest thrill, that came from the Pep Effect, outside of my daughter. My oldest daughter finding it in Barnes and Noble, and I know you have loads of those kinds of stories. When your child or a loved one, finds the book and says, "Look, you're, that you can't beat that, man."
Yeah, there's nothing better than seeing your book in the wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So speaking of music, and I would be remiss if we didn't talk about music now that we've mentioned the Beatles and Carlos Santana. What are those? And I know a little bit about your musical history and your story, but currently, in on your turntable, so to speak, what are those pieces of music, what are those songs that drive you, that drive your work, that drive the work of Dave Burgess and drive the work of the publishing company and the speaking? What are those songs that, like, when you hit a wall, and that, all right, I gotta play this, or put this on, or get inspired by this?
Yeah, so I tend towards the hip hop rap scene, right? That's kind of what
Hmm.
my background is. And so that's where I'm often going for inspiration. And I'm not unique in currently often having Kendrick Lamar on my playlist, right? He's had one of the biggest years in hip hop history
Yep.
the past year. And so certainly that would be on the a little bit more modern side. But like I go back to, I used to use rap and rap lyrics throughout my US history class and music throughout the US history class. And if you think about like the 60s and the impact of music in the 60s and how music was so central to what was happening in society, and so not only reflective of society, but then it's like society was changing the music and music was changing the culture, right? It was like it was going
Hmm.
back and forth. And for me, I really got fascinated by the kind of the social consciousness music or movement in rap, especially in the like late 80s, early 90s, when people like Public Enemy were springing
Yes.
on the scene. And
Yes.
I was in college and this was a period of time that was kind of life-changing for me. I was taking some different classes in African American history and I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read Revolutionary Suicide by Huey Newton. I read Seize the Time by Bobby Seale.
Oh, man.
Um, and then Public Enemy songs were on my
Hmm.
playlist and coming out. I was very close to a person who went to UC Davis with me and lived in the dorms at the time. His name was Oscar Jackson. And Oscar Jackson is what his name was, but most people know him if you're into rap music as Paris. And Paris was a Bay
Yeah.
Area
Oh,
rap
wow.
star who he went to UC Davis. He was in my same dorm rooms. He used to come over to my dorm room and use my 808 drum machine to compose beats. And I would have uh, all the latest vinyl and two Techniques 1200 turntables in my dorm room. And we would come over and play records. And he would then sometimes he would take the
Nice.
808 drum machine off to the studio for the weekend in San Francisco, bring it back on the Monday. And so he was at the time, one of the things they billed him as is the Black Panther of hip hop, right?
Hmm.
And so I had all through that time period, I just became very fascinated by what Chuck D in an interview said he called rap music this Black people's CNN
Mm.
during that period of time, where he was saying like, hey, in a marginalized community who is not getting access to traditional media in order to tell their story, here is a way of leaking this story out on the kind of on the underground below the seams, and it's going to have a cultural impact because it's going straight, it's not going through the filter of traditional media. We're able to go into the studio, create something, tell our story and craft it and go straight to the source, go straight to the culture, right? And that whole process was fascinating to me and kind of really drew me in. And yeah, it was very influential. And like I said, I used to just sprinkle these things all throughout my US history class.
Mm. Yeah, man. How lucky your students were, and to teach during that time, and I remember Fear of a Black Planet. I
Yeah,
remember the Bring the Noise video, Fight the Power video, and
yeah,
and as you know, I love crossover and mashups, and well, what will happen if you put the Beatles with Jay-Z? You're going to get the Gray album, right? So
yeah.
and I remember, seeing the Walk This Way video as a kid on MTV when it debuted, and to see literally Aerosmith break the wall down and
Yeah.
bringing, Run DMC. I mean, it's revolutionary, but yeah, man, that you got me nostalgic kind of for those early days of rap and hip hop. I tend towards the more melodic neo psychedelia of De La Soul.
Yeah.
That was my jam, and Tribe Called Quest, and those things. But
And
but
it was
the
all
music,
happening at the same time.
yeah, man, that's right.
But much like the 60s scene, all these people were coming up at the same time, where you
Yeah.
had like the Jimi Hendrix over here, the Beatles over here, and
Hmm.
Janis Joplin, and like all these different things were happening around that cultural scene. You have like the hippie hip hop of De La Soul kind of a
Yeah,
thing,
man. Yeah.
and the like jazz influenced hip hop, and
Yeah.
the uh, X Clan and Public Enemy, and like all these different things were happening at the same time, and it was an exciting period of time. And I just remember trying to fight this stereotype, which was very common at where the rap music was this thing about violence and um, everything was gangster and all that. Like, oh, wait, hold on a second. Like, do you not see the topics on a Public Enemy record? Like on this, what it might be one record. This song's about black on black violence, right?
Hmm.
This song right here is about the prevalent use of the N word within the community. This song over here, by the time like Night Train is the black violence one. There's a song. I'm thinking about the Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black. Like by the
Yes.
time I get to Arizona, there's a
Yes.
whole song about the fact that Arizona was refusing to acknowledge Martin Luther
MLK.
King Day, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole, there was a song called Shut 'Em Down, which was about, hey, let's stop supporting corporations who are draining our community of money, but then not putting any money back into the community, right?
Hmm.
And this whole like social awareness of like the impact of capitalism on the Black community and like being able to trying to exert some control over that. Um, a letter to the New York Post, same album. It was about like how media was picking up these negative stories about rap
Yes.
groups and Public
Yes.
Enemy. And then even
Yes.
some of the Black media were then picking up that story and running with it without going to the source and seeing if the story was true, right? And like all these things were happening. Um, uh, if I had to take, sometimes people say like if you could only take 5 albums to a desert island or something like those kind of things, like
Hmm.
one of mine would be "It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us
Oh,
Back."
oh
Like that
man.
was kind of like the groundbreaking
Yeah.
Public Enemy. I had the one before where the My Uzi Weighs a Ton, Bum Rush the Show, all
Oh,
those songs were on there.
yeah.
But It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us
That was the
Back was kind of like
breakthrough.
the groundbreaker, right?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, powerful music on there. And then you mentioned Fight the Power. Like that was, remember the anthem for Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing,
Right
that
thing.
movie.
Yeah.
And when I was teaching Malcolm X and
Oh.
Martin Luther King. I would always do a compare and contrast between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And that was
Hmm.
something that was kind of a through line of Do the Right Thing as well. In fact, the movie ends
With
by
that.
showing a quote from Martin Luther King and then showing a quote, like scrolling on the screen. There's a Martin Luther King quote and then there's a Malcolm X quote. And I would play that for the kids and say, because when you see the Martin Luther King quote, you're like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is exactly what I believe. And then
Hmm.
it keeps scrolling and you play the Malcolm X quote and you're like, oh, well, hold on a second. Wait, I kind of like this one too.
Yeah.
And like that's putting them in that state of like, oh wow, like I agree with both. How can I make
Mhm.
this make sense in my head? Because like I kind of agree with both of them. And I'm saying, yeah, it's pretty complicated, isn't it? Like
It
this is a
is.
complex thing that we're talking about here, right? Um, I
Wow.
used to just love to do that to them, right? The talking about the subject, like the Public Enemy has a song called "Can't Trust It," and in that song, there's this whole section where Chuck D in first person is talking about the Middle Passage, like
Yes.
the voyage of slave ships. And like it's just powerful, right? And like to be able to play that for the kids and have them react to it. Paris, I mentioned Paris, going to college with Paris. He has a song called Escape from Babylon,
Mm.
where in the song Escape from Babylon, he has lyrically put the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Oh,
that was
man.
something that I could bring to them. It was,
Wow.
I don't remember it exactly, but I mean, it was something like it was uh, something like unforgettable, the words of wisdom brought to life by the 10-point system. And it was like one, freedom and power to determine our destiny. Two, full employment for the Black community. Three, fight the capitalists with a raised fist. BUY Black and stack awareness.
Mm.
Four, decent housing for the shelter of human beings. Five, education and truth for the Black youth. Six, all Black men exempt from military service. Hear my words and get nervous. Seven,
Mm.
a quick end to police brutality, death of Blacks at the hands of the TD. Eight, release of all Black men held in prison, guilty before proven innocent.
Mm.
Nine, Black juries when our brothers are tried in court. And in addition to all this, we want 10 land, bread, housing, and education, clothing, justice, and peace for the Black nation. So
Wow.
that is the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party, right?
Wow.
And like crafted into a lyrical way, like that is now able to get straight out to people and to kids and to be able to like educate them. Like you can't understand music without understanding history. You can't understand history without understanding music. It's so powerful. Like, how
Yes.
are you going to listen to a Public Enemy album and you don't know the historical context that they're talking about? Take a song like off of that, take A Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Prophets of Rage, I think is the title of the
Oh,
song.
yeah. Yes.
Like,
Go there.
it's like that. I'm like Nat, so leave me the hell
Leave
alone.
alone.
Well, hey, whoa, we gotta find who's this Nat guy? Oh, Nat Turner,
Yeah.
slave revolt, right? And
Yeah.
like we're like Denmark and Vesey, we have a reason why. Or no, we're like not Denmark and Vesey, or like we're like Vesey and Prosser. We're like
Mm.
Vesey and Prosser, we have a reason why to debate the hate. That's why we're born to die. Like Vesey and Prosser. Okay, wait a second. Let's learn about this. Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner, three of the most famous slave revolts in U.S. history. So he's hearkening back to this resistance to oppression and to racism and to slavery. So like just in one song, we're going to learn who Nat Turner is, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser. I think he even has Marcus Garvey in that song as
Hmm.
well, right?
He
All
does.
these names that got kids who are learning history should know. all these names that like there's groups today that don't want you to know, right? These movements.
Hmm.
And it's just so powerful to use music in teaching.
It really is, man, and just you getting amped up. I mean, definitely, Dave, you are louder than a bomb, if I may make a nod to that pivotal track on that great album. But I'm as you're dropping these bars, man, and dropping the mic, I'm thinking, what would Dave Burgess, if teacher Dave Burgess in a classroom do with something like Hamilton? I mean, I can just they would have to shut the power off in that building, because that to me all that mashup and really the things that Chuck D was doing in terms of this edification, and that's the great thing about music is it is an entry point into so many things. Like for me, the Beatles led me to Ravi Shankar, led me to Bob Dylan, led me to Eric Clapton, to Zeppelin, to all of these things as I would research this stuff. And the same thing with Public Enemy. Well, man, maybe I do need to pick up my Marcus Garvey a little bit, or man, maybe I do need to talk to my dad, who was in his 20s during that era, and saw those cats and heard about those cats, and Gil Scott Heron and all these guys. So I can only imagine like you in a 2015, 2016, in a classroom. They'd have to pull you out of there, man.
I am so sad that I missed the Hamilton era as a teacher because I'm a huge Hamill fan, right? Hamilton.
Right.
I've seen it 4 times live. I've even been went to Puerto Rico to see it when
With the original
Lynn went
cast.
back
Yeah.
to play Alexander Hamilton. So I was always sad that I never got to see Lynn play the role, right? It was like,
Hmm.
I'll never, it's over. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm never going to see it. I wish I could have seen that. And then for hurricane relief, he did some fundraising, a series of fundraising shows
Hmm.
where the big key was like he was coming back to play Alexander Hamilton again. And I went to Puerto Rico to go see that. Like that's how big of a fan I am.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm fascinated by that whole thing. If people haven't seen, if you go to YouTube and put in Lin Manuel Miranda White House,
Yes.
and there's this, it's just, I love this story because it's about dreaming. It's about having a vision. It's about a manifest, like having believing in your vision,
That's
something that's
right.
important
Pepper
and
effect.
central to the Pepper effect, right?
That's right, man.
Ignoring the naysayers,
That's right.
right? So there was a poet, like a special, like a poetry event at the White House.
Hmm.
And this was before anybody knew about Hamilton the musical, right? Lynn was just developing it. He was writing it. He shows up as like a spoken word poet kind of thing at this event and stands up in front of the audience and says, I am writing a musical, a rap musical about the Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. And the audience breaks into laughter
Mm.
because it's absurd. If you like at that point
Hmm.
in time, like that would have been considered absurd, right? He's like, no, no, no. Like his life like exemplifies hip hop
Yeah.
and this, and like he was like kind of explaining himself, and the audience is going like, what, like who, what's this guy talking about, right? And then he played the opening track. He did an early version of the opening track
Hmm.
of Alexander Hamilton with piano accompaniment. And the lyrics are a little bit different here and there, you'll notice, but it
Hmm.
was like just this early version of it. But he had this belief and he worked years and years pulling this thing together. He ignored the naysayers, the
That's
people who said
right.
like a rap musical isn't going to work. Like, what do you mean a rap musical about the Secretary of the
Yeah.
Treasury?
Who does that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then to look back on it and to see what happened now and to see that early version of it, like I just love that story. Like I love to
Hmm.
think back to um, my history and like standing up at my first teach like a pirate thing, walking around education conferences, Sean. No book, nobody knew who I was,
Hmm.
walking around education conferences dressed like a pirate. Now, can you think about how absurd now it's like they see me and go like, oh, it's that pirate guy. Like it's the
Right.
2000 pirate. At the time, I mean, we're talking my first one was like summer of 2005 or six, and the book didn't come
Wow.
out until 2012.
Wow,
So
man.
I, for years, was walking around education conferences dressed like a pirate, no book. And
Wow.
like there were naysayers.
Oh yeah. That's a real. That's
There
the
was
naysayers.
laughter, there was mockery, right? Like, and it's like, I believe in this thing. Like I'm
Hmm.
going with it, you know? And like, so go back and check out Lin-Manuel Miranda at the White House,
I
in
will.
that early version of that. Oh, it's just so cool. And this whole idea that here's this guy who's born horrible circumstances,
Hmm.
um, uh, and how does he get to how does he get to the US? Well, they raise money for him because of something he wrote, like his ability to write.
Yes.
So I wrote my way out, right?
Yes.
It was his ability to write is where he, like his story and the power of his words. That's a hip hop story.
Yeah.
Inner city, like poverty, like, but how can you, but if you can write, if you can command, if your charisma can command presence,
Hmm.
if you can step up on a stage with a microphone, you can write your way out,
That's right,
right?
man.
And that's what Alexander Hamilton did. And so he wrote his way. It's a total hip hop story. And then there's he's a ladies' man,
He
right?
is the Reynolds
There's
pamphlet.
yeah. I mean, there's that whole element to it mixed in there. And then, I mean, what's more hip hop than dying in a gun battle?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, it's like this is absolutely a hip hop story, and he saw it. He took that book, the biography of Alexander Hamilton, on
That's
a
right.
vacation
That's right.
and read it, and then had the vision of like, oh, this is a music. This is a hip hop story. That's genius.
It is, man. And the fact that the show is still on Broadway, the show still streams on Disney Plus. The fact that Lin Manuel Miranda and the co-creators that won the Pulitzer Prize. I mean, and Pulitzer Prize. That's you don't get that until later in your career.
Yeah,
Older. You're in the twilight. Man.
yeah,
Lin Manuel is a little bit younger than us, right? And to achieve this kind of literary artistic recognition, and thank God, like the Beatles, like you, like Lin Manuel, he ignored the naysayers. The Beatles
yeah,
were told guitar groups are on their way out. I wrote about it in the Pepper Effect. Thank God they didn't stop. Thank God they didn't give in to that. Thank God they didn't give. And I think that's a lot of not just the story in the Pepper Effect. It's very much your story, Dave, and what you've inspired for so many, that have written. I mean, in front of me, I can't. If I turn it, I'll end the podcast unexpectedly. But it's all the books that I've read and all of the stories, out of Dave Burgess Consulting Inc. and what thank God, that one cackle of you at some conference or wherever it was in 2008, 2006, thank God you didn't just say, you know what, screw this I'm going back to the classroom. I've embarrassed myself. I'm not going to do that anymore. You kept pushing, you kept believing, you kept hoping, and you kept driving.
yeah. And like to go back to the Hamilton thing just for a second, like another thing that I love about this, and like I think is part of this story of DVC a little bit too, is everybody that was somebody at that time period had like this pedigree. Like they
Yeah.
were from rich families.
Aaron Burr.
They were from rich families. They
Yeah.
had pedigree. They had, went to the finest universities, like all this kind of stuff. And they were kind of like, uh, that's why they were in the positions that they were in, right?
Hmm.
And then that's part of the reasons why they bristled so much at Hamilton, because he's this immigrant who does not have the pedigree.
No, he does not. Nowhere
but
near it.
he's kicking their butt by his ability to speak and write, right? It's like
Yeah.
he's uh and so they're like, like, who is this guy? Like, why he is supposed to be, we're supposed to be running this country. Like, we're not this immigrant, right? And and so that whole element is the same thing that I feel sometimes with DBC, is that
Mhm.
it's eliminating the gatekeepers of where it used to be like, well, you have to have this sort of these credentials in order to write a book. Like you have to have this doctorate in this thing and this and be have done these studies for all these different years and all that. Like that's who writes books. Like
Right.
classroom teachers don't write books. The person who's in the principal's office doesn't write a book. It's the person who's studying the people in the principal's
That's
office who
right.
writes the book, right? And we're saying, no, we're going to get rid of all these gatekeepers. I want to know what's working right now. I want to know, what are you doing in the principal's office that's transforming the culture of your school, that you
Mm.
are the one that has to stand up in front of the staff on the first day of school when the teachers come back and be able to lead that school, right? You're the one, you're a teacher, you classroom teacher, you know what works
Mhm.
because you got to stand in front of the same audience of kids for 180 days,
Yeah.
right? 180 days. You better be good if you have the same audience for 180 days,
That's right.
right? Like that's a rough gig. People, like if you think about like a band, they do a concert and then what do? They go to the next city and do another concert. The next city, it's a new audience every time. A teacher is a band that plays for the same group every single day. So the
Yes.
creativity that is required for that, and that like I want to know their story. I want to empower their voice. And so it was John Carippo, who's like the Edu Protocols guys, right? So Edu
Mhm.
Protocols, he one time referred to DBC. I love this. He said that like it's the micro brewery of educational publishing. And like where you
Ah.
have these big house, like the big house breweries that have like the Anheuser-Busch and like all that kind of stuff like this. But if you really know your beer, you might
Changing
want
it
to
up.
get a more like a microbrewery who's just somebody who's just really passionate about their recipe. And like that's kind of the DBC of the publishing world. And it's like taking these, um, elevating the voice of the practitioner, right?
Mm.
And so like that's a key part of this.
That's and that kind of harkens back as you say that about the teacher in the classroom, and you've got 180 days, and that for our kids, that's their only shot at third grade. That's their only shot at 11th grade American history. Um, it gets me thinking about the Beatles and how they transcended, a typical band when they played in Hamburg, Germany, and they had to play 8, 9, 10 hours. Malcolm Gladwell writes about it in Outliers about the 10,000 hour rule. And what made the Beatles great was, well, we only knew however many songs. We had to play more, and we had to cover not just the hits. Well, once we did that, other bands were copying our set list. So, all right, let's do the B sides. Let's find obscure songs. Let's write our own songs, right? Let's take a song like Ray Charles is what I'd say, and instead of doing it in 2 minutes, let's do it for 10 minutes, right? And it's that kind of versatility that
Yeah.
that made the band great. It's that same versatility and that agility, I think, is the better word, that makes educators great when they're able to nuance that
Yeah.
and able to kind of swim in that marrow, right? And keep that kind of goes back to what we said at the beginning, this whole notion of experience and engagement and finding and inviting people in the space for joy. And you have to really be in tune not only with the people whom you serve, but you have to be in tune with yourself and believe in yourself.
Yeah. So what you said about the timing, the being able to adjust the timing and make things fit and all that, it reminds me very much as a professional development speaker. You go out on the road for a while and you realize that everybody wants a different time. Like this is going to be a 90 minutes. This is going to be 2 hours. Here's a 3 hour
Mhm.
one. Here's this. And they maybe you're standing over on the side waiting to go on, and they invite up the sponsor of the event to say a couple words that they think is going to be 1 minute, and the guy goes 10 minutes or whatever.
Yep.
Or the school board president steps up and she does a 15-minute thing where they thought that she was going to say thank you all for being here and walk off
Mhm.
stage. And so I'm sitting over there with my 90-minute presentation, watching 15 minutes of it evaporate. No, okay, I'm going to have to step on stage right now and take what was going to be 90 minutes and adjust it to 75 minutes on the fly, right? And be able to do that. And that's what, I mean, teachers have to do that all the time, right? Like, oh, this was my lesson, but there goes the fire drill. Oh man, like we
Yeah,
gotta we gotta
exactly.
adjust, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that adaptability, it's like that flexibility and ability to adapt to the and create those and take advantage of those teachable moments and all those things. Um, it's very jazz. Teaching is very
Yes.
jazz. The
Yes, it is.
improvisation. You have a structure that everything is kind of tied to, but we're going to play off of each other, and we're going to like, oh, I wasn't going to like third period. That kid over there just asked a question, and that's a dang good question.
Hmm.
And second period, we didn't go this direction, but man, I'm going to take advantage of this teachable moment right now. I'm going to do a
Yeah.
little improvisational jazz work, and we're
Nice.
going to go down this rabbit hole because that's the teachable moment right there. Like that, like teaching is very jazz in that sense. Um, yeah, there's just so many ways that these things all tie together, and it's beautiful.
That's awesome, man. What's next for you? What do you got? What's on your docket? I know I follow you on social media, and I know you're always on the road. You've got gigs, you've got jazz improv gigs, you've got presentations, conferences. What's next on your docket, man?
Yeah, so I'm leaving actually tomorrow for the first PD trip in a while. It's good to get back out on the road and get in front of an audience again. I love that, and summer is typically the busiest stretch for that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this still got some openings out there. If anybody's interested, would love to come and talk to staff. As much as I'm focused on the publishing, there is something about getting back up in front of the audience, and that I have a true love of that, and it really fills my bucket, brings a lot of energy to me. And so I still like to pick up the guitar, so to speak, right? Pick up the mic and step out on stage and do my thing. And so that's kind of the stretch that I'm headed into right now. And of course, we always have amazing books that are in development, underway, and about to come out, and just have come out. And yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff going on behind the scenes at DBC too.
Awesome, man. Really excited for you, and I will be sure to put all of the just the ways to connect with you, and I know that you're very active in social media and your website. You've got the weekly Sunday 7,
Yep.
which is a way for current readers, future readers, folks that want to book you. That's probably the kind of the easiest way to get the ongoing information and updates, and then profiles of various authors, or in some cases, kind of what's on your mind, what you're doing,
Yep.
or some of the folks that are in your band, Tara Martin, and those things. You guys are very good about kind of sharing your story and connecting with others and reaching out.
Yeah, we love it. We love to build community and create those kind of spaces where like-minded people can get together. And I wrote about this and did a podcast on it. Create a place to ritualize comes from Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, where
Mm.
he was asked about these deadheads that followed around from concert to concert, show to show, and were a part of that whole community, and like what he thought about that. And he's like, it's like what we've done is it's not just like the music. It's like what we've done is we've created a place for people to come together and ritualize.
Hmm.
And that's when I think of like the TLAP community on social media and the DBC community and like the Daybers Consulting family of authors. And it's creating a place for like-minded people to come together and ritualize and to share space and to be empowered and uplifted. And so that whole community building aspect of it is something that we're super passionate about. And we're very proud to have you in that community and the Pepper Effect in that book. And who knows what's coming forward? Like there might be some surprises at some point.
Yeah, definitely, definitely for sure. And I can't think of a better way today, with just the serendipitous scheduling of this episode and the return of principal liner notes on the book birthday of the Pepper Effect. And you know, I'll say this, Dave. A lot of folks, and I write about this in the book, when the Beatles recorded the Sergeant Pepper album, they sequestered themselves. They stopped performing. They walked away from all of that, which was very lucrative. You have screaming fans, and they made this courageous decision. Well, we want to focus on our studio work and do something that hasn't been done before. And the British press was relentless in their negativity about this move by the Beatles, and saying, "Well, the Beatles are breaking up. The Beatles are finished. They're through." And Paul McCartney later said that we were reading those headlines at the same time they were coming out. We were reading those articles, and we were laughing because we knew what we were doing in the studio, and we knew what was getting ready to happen was going to blow everyone's mind. And we used to say to ourselves, well, you just wait. You just wait.
Yeah.
And I think about that
Which
kind
is
of
another
mind.
Hamilton reference too.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Just you wait.
Just you wait. But anyway, it's that same thing that I think echoes you and your work and what you do. The Beatles put on Sergeant Pepper's costumes and said, "We're not the Beatles anymore. We're these guys, and we're going to create this way." It can be the pirate, it can be a space person, it can be anybody, but it's you finding your passion and having the courage, and you have ignited so much courage for so many educators, and had it not been for you saying yes to the Pepper Effect, there wouldn't be a school in Canada where maybe there was one student. I really believe this. There was one student in that troop that was either having a horrible day, was having an existential moment, but they found joy because they got to be part of the Pepper Effect play, or they got to be part of the Beatles, man. And so I'm eternally grateful for how not only you've changed my life personally and professionally, but I'm grateful for all of the sparks. It's not just my book. There are all kinds of books where there are similar stories where your spark ignited and changed the world for others. And so on behalf of all of those sparks, Dave, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I love you, man.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me, Sean.
Man, it really is. I'm very grateful. So, um, this concludes the. I'm getting a little emotional, Dave. Um, mm, this
You're
conclu-
back.
yeah, I'm back. I'm back, man. This concludes the inaugural return episode of the Principal Liner Notes, and I cannot think of a better person to be part of this serendipitous inauguration. Thank you, Dave Burgess. Please follow all of his social media handles. Use the hashtag TLAP, TLAP. Relentlessly connect with Dave, connect with his authors. If the Pepper Effect is something that's not for you, that's fine. There are plenty of other books in the Dave Burgess universe. We do write back. We do connect with our readers, and that's something that Dave encourages us to do, and he does that relentlessly, and we do that in turn. So I will be sure to put all of those links in the show notes. As I often conclude, the podcast it's a line that has stayed with me over the years, and I hope it stays with you, dear audience. Do not forget to share with the world your dreams, your ideas, your visions, because the world needs them, and you, just like Dave Burgess, help make the world a better place. This is Sean Gaylord with my guest and my friend and my bandmate Dave Burgess. This is the Principal Liner Notes. Catch you on the flip side.